What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today I want to take a look at this Radioddity GM30 Plus. Radioddity was nice enough to send me a pair of these radios. You'll see I only have one here on the desk. The other one is actually outside. We'll talk about why in a minute. I've had these radios for a little while. You've probably seen some reviews on other channels about this radio. I got my radios about the same time that they did, but I didn't want to just pump out a review real quick. I kind of wanted to play with the radios a little while first, use them, see what I thought, develop my own opinions before I put out a video on what I thought about these radios. So I'm not going to do what you would consider a typical review. I'm going to talk about the things I like and dislike about these radios, whether I think I would purchase them or not if given the chance. Like I said, these were sent to me free of charge by Radioddity, and I do appreciate the opportunity to review these. You've seen these radios in a couple of my other videos, but today I do want to talk a little bit about some of the features on these things. So it's a standard GMRS radio, so it's got your 8 repeater channels as well as your 22 standard GMRS channels. There are different zones. You can set up different banks. I think there are 10 memory banks you can set up, so you could set up a whole slew of banks on this thing. Not that you would really need it with GMRS. You might want to use separate banks, maybe if you were in different locations and had different repeaters you wanted to set up. But there are some things about this radio that I really like, and there are a few things about it that I'm not a huge fan of. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I don't have a standard GM30 here. But I do have, this is a Baofeng, I think this is what, a GM13 Pro or something like that, or GM15 Pro, I forget. It's a GMRS radio, but it's the same basic chassis as the GM30, so you can see it's quite a bit smaller. All right. And there's a couple of reasons for that. You can see how much bigger the screen is on the GM30 Plus, and there are also some features on this GM30 Plus that the other radio doesn't have. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but let's talk about the radio itself first. We've got our on-off knob. We've got a fairly standard keypad, very easy to read. On the side, we've got a couple multi-function switches, as well as our push-to-talk. We've got our belt clip on the back. We also have a USB-C port, and this is actually USB-C. This is not a USB-A to USB-C deal. This will charge USB-C power delivery, so this is the real deal. A lot of these radios aren't. This one is. This one's interesting. It's got a screw that holds the battery to the chassis. I've never seen that before. It's actually kind of a pretty sturdy way to attach the battery to this radio. And on the other side, we've got our standard jack where we could attach a speaker mic or our programming cable. So it's got a very clear, very easy to read color screen. The menu structure is should be pretty familiar. We've got our banks. If you want to switch between banks, you can do that. We can scan. Our different radio settings are in here. So this is where we change things like our squelch levels and our things like that, power levels, all those kinds of things. This is actually the GPS menu where we can turn the GPS on and off. We can set our time zones. We can pick our GPS mode. So if we want to do standard GPS or BDS or both, all right, BDS would be sort of like the Chinese version of GPS. We can program individual channels. So if we want to program a channel or a repeater in, we can do it from the front panel here. Our radio info, so it shows us our firmware and our hardware version. And we're back again. All right, pretty straightforward, pretty standard layout. We can switch between our two. We can switch between VFO mode and memory mode by pushing P1. We can switch between VFOA and VFOB by pushing P2. Pretty simple. All right, change channels by going up and down. Again, pretty standard stuff for a GMRS radio. We've got our signal strength indicators. All right. Now, one of the things this radio has that kind of separates it from a lot of GMRS radios, especially at this price point, is the fact that this does include GPS. So you saw in the menu there, right, we do have the ability to turn GPS on and off. If I long press P2, it will take me to my position. So you can see I've got a GPS lock. GPS is green right here. Let me get a pencil so my finger's not in the way. You can see it says GPS here. It shows my location. All right. If I scroll up, contact 1 is me. It says host. That's my location. If I scroll up to the next contact, position 2, that is the other radio, which is outside currently. And if I key up, see if it'll give me a location. Okay, so we've got our location for our second radio here. Okay, so you can see where it is. It gives us our coordinates as well as our height above ground. And if I long press menu, short press menu, I'm sorry, it shows me direction to contact 2. Okay, so it shows me if I was going to head towards that other radio, it shows me what direction to walk. You can see it's 48 meters away. And like I said, this radio is outside right now. So it gives me distance to target as well as the direction. All right. So that's one of the nice things about this radio is it does allow you to see positions of other team members. So one of the things I like about this is, and I think this is where this radio is going to come into a lot of use, is in the summer when I use this with my wife, she and I will be able to see where each other are out in the woods or out on the water without any other hardware. All right. I've got the sort of standard dual band antenna on this thing right now. This comes with 2 antennas. It comes with this sort of standard 2 meter 70 centimeter whip, and it also comes with a big long extended range antenna. Normally I actually run these with a Smiley, one of the little stubby GMRS antennas that I like to run, but I figured I'd throw the stock antenna on it for this. Yeah, all in all, this is a pretty nice radio. It's not water resistant, so to speak. I mean, it might have a little bit of water resistance, but it's not like it's IP67 or anything, so you wouldn't want to use it in the rain. Well, you might be able to get away with it in the rain. You definitely don't want to drop it in the water, though. It's got a AM or FM radio in it. It's got weather in it as well, so you can listen to the NOAA weather frequencies and things like that on it. It'll receive, your standard 2 meter 70 centimeter FM broadcast stuff. Now, the radio itself is pretty nice. Build quality is fairly good. It's a good form factor. It feels good in your hand. Really, the only thing that I'm not a huge fan of this radio about is the screen. Now, the screen inside here looks fantastic. I mean, it's very easy to read. It's very legible. The colors are good. It looks great. However, if we go outside, this screen is absolutely unreadable. And so to do that, I'm going to hop over to my phone. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to show you what the radio outside in the bright sun looks like, and you'll see what I mean. So we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so we're back. So I'm outside now. You can see the radio sitting in the driveway there. So this is the problem, and this is not a problem just with this radio. This is the problem with any of these radios that have these color screens, all right? They are absolutely... You can't read that at all. Even if I turn around and put that in the shade, it is just absolutely unreadable. All right, I can just barely see it in the shade here. It is, that's the one problem with these color screens. They look great, but I'll tell you what, man, in the bright sun, you might as well not even use the radio. I mean, if you leave it on one channel and you don't care about seeing any of the information on the screen, you just want to use the push to talk, it's not a problem. But if you need to see that screen for anything, forget it. It is absolutely unreadable in the sun. And this is, like I said, this is not the only radio like this. My Woshin KGUV 935 or whatever it is. UV9G Pro, I think that's what it is. That one you can't read in the sun. I just got a LNR Precision Mountain Topper MTR 3B, the new one, and that's got a color screen in it. You can't see that outside either. So, I really wish that companies would stick with sort of the standard monochrome screens that a lot of the radios have that are super legible outdoors. This looks nice, but you can't read it in the sun. So at any rate, let's hop back in the shack and let's finish this up. I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so we're back in the shack here. You can see I've got both radios inside now. So let's do some final thoughts on these radios. I'll tell you what I think about them and whether I would buy them or not. So again, they're not perfect. Like I said, they're a little bigger than what I normally carry. Not really an issue. They're not huge, but they're a little bigger than what I normally carry. Really, the only downside I see with these radios is that screen. Like I said, indoors, it is extremely easy to read. Outside, man, I'll tell you what, it is darn near impossible to read these screens outdoors in the bright sunlight. If you cover it with your hand, you can read it. But it's really hard, especially today is super bright and sunny. It's one of those crystal clear. It's 2 days before Christmas. There's not a cloud in the sky, super sunny, and you can't see anything. All right. All in all, radios are pretty nice. One thing we didn't talk about is the CPS software. They do have customer programming software, which is actually not bad. So let me get these out of the way and I'll show you the software real quick. I've got it on my computer here. So this software is very similar to most other programming software you might be familiar with, things like Chirp or what have you. You've got all your different channels. We can set things like radio functions from in here, so I can open this menu and change all the squelch levels and all, any of the radio settings we can do from in here. I can add different banks. So down here I can clear banks. I can add banks. So down here you see we're on bank 1. If I click over here, bank 2, bank 3, so on and so forth. So, like I said, we've got multiple banks. It's fairly easy to use. You just hook the radio up. Click up here, we click read from the radio, and write to the radio. It's pretty straightforward, okay? So the customer programming software is actually reasonably good, fairly easy to use. You probably don't need it though, unless you want to name channels. So instead of seeing, for instance, the frequency here, so you can see this says 462.550, which is channel 15, and you can see 15 up here. If I wanted to name that GMRS 15 or something, I would need the programming software to do that. But aside from that, you really don't need the programming software for much of anything on a GMRS radio. They're pretty simple, and programming a repeater from the front panel is very easy on one of these. So, like I said, pros, fairly well built, USB-C charging, very easy to use, legible screen as long as you're not in the sun, built-in GPS, so you can see your location as well as locations of the other radios. Really the only downside, like I said, the screen's very hard to see in the sun, and it's a little bit bigger than what I normally carry. Now, would I buy these? Yes, I probably would. At the price point these things are at, I think these are about, it's about $70 for a pair. I think it's a pretty good deal. If you're looking for a decent GMRS radio that has location ability in it, this is a really good option. There are other radios out there that have that ability, but they're a lot more expensive. So if you're looking for a GMRS radio that doesn't break the bank, that works well, is fairly easy to use, built-in GPS, USB-C charging, comes with multiple antennas. Yeah, really, I think it's a pretty good package. So all in all, I think Radioddity did a good job on this radio. The one thing I would change if I were them is I would change that screen, right? So like if I take this Yaesu and we look at the screen on this thing, all right, this thing is super legible outdoors, all right? So you can probably see that right now, even with the backlight off, it's very easy to read, all right? You don't get that on a color screen like you do with one of these monochrome, what is this, LCD screen, right? These are very easy to read. If I go outside in the bright sun in this thing, it's with the backlight off, it is super duper legible, right? I can't say the same thing with the color screens, but like I said, that is not a knock against Radioddity. That is a knock against all of these color screens. So if there were two things that would make this radio perfect, make it IP67 and ditch the color screen, this would be my go-to GMRS radio. They work great, built-in GPS, comfortable in the hand, right? Those are really the only knocks I have against it. So at the end of the day, if you're looking for a pretty good GMRS radio that won't break the bank and has some features that other ones don't, I would take a look at the GM30. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Again, Radioddity, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to use these radios. I really do appreciate it. And I think this summer, these will probably be my go-to radios in the woods, as long as I'm not out on the water. Like if I'm in my kayak or something, I'm going to take one of my IP67 radios. But aside from that, if we're just hiking around, yeah, I'm going to use these because I can see where other people are without having to worry about an external GPS or something. So at any rate, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I've got a couple more videos in the pipeline that'll be coming out. I've got some more emergency type stuff planned. I've got a giveaway that I'm going to be doing here. Nothing crazy because it's not like I'm rolling in dough. I don't have radios coming out of my ears that people give me. But I'm going to give away a couple of my own radios here on the channel, probably after Christmas, before New Year's, sometime in that time frame. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well. But at any rate, I really do appreciate everybody watching. Thank you so much for the report, for the support. Again, Radioddity, thank you so much for the opportunity to look at these radios. I do appreciate it. And until next time, as always, 73.